Okay, there we go. So welcome to our spring training for the 4-H volunteers. And I don't like standing behind this counter, but we learned today that this is actually a better for audio. It's better to stand next to the system. So, but this is tonight we are going to be talking about. We talked about what we wanted to discuss in the training, and we really looked at what is Mary. So we're going to talk about just general positive youth development, what that means to us as to us as staff and volunteers. We're going to talk about 4-H club management and hopefully give you some new tools or remind you about some things that will help you when you're working with your 4-H clubs, and then also organizing and managing our 4-H club work. And so again, giving you some tips and tools, etc. So, and then I'm going to give a few updates about the 4-H program and give you a chance to ask any questions that you might have, and then we will adjourn. So hopefully, I know that there are some people on the call tonight that as of 8:30 last night were maybe not registered for the session, which is fine. But I had sent out a lot of the handouts earlier, and so I'll be sending those out again. So everybody, I'll send the link to the handouts so you've got that, as well as a recording. So, and then I'll also be sending an evaluation. So just, I wanted to make sure. Who do I have? There is somebody on the phone. Can you tell me who that is by chance? 1775. Yeah. Okay. Not a problem. But the other piece is I think I've got everybody else. So we're going to start the night, and thank you everybody for joining us. Hopefully we're going to get used to the Zoom system, and to me it is a great way for us to do training. So you guys can stay in the comfort of your own homes, but yet you can still receive this training. So, all right, so I am going to pull up so we're going to talk about positive youth development. So I'm just pulling up the PowerPoint right now. And if anybody has questions while we're going, please unmute yourself, or you can type it in the chat box if you see the chat box on the bottom of your screen. So feel free to do either one of those. Whoops. Sorry, I remembered what I was doing. Okay, there we go. So most of this information that we're sharing with you tonight is actually out of a resource we call it the Volunteer Research Knowledge and Competencies. So it's something that was put together, several years ago, that was put together by a bunch of volunteer specialists from across the country. But it's really what are some of the competencies, or what are some of the skills to help volunteers be successful as we move into the next generation. So I'm going to talk about the positive youth development. So what is youth development? It's an ongoing process in which young people attempt to meet their needs and develop the competencies that they perceive as necessary for survival and transition into adulthood. What we find is with youth development, it needs to be an intentional, it's an ongoing intentional process, especially when we move into the positive youth development. And again, as we look at this, what is positive youth development? It's a process that incorporates social and emotional, cognitive and moral and physical development. So you may hear us talk about, kind of the 4 areas of social, emotional, cognitive, and physical development of young people. And this one is actually also included the moral development. And it's of our youth to meet our challenges, so it's helping them to become competent adults. But again, it needs to be an intentional process. Sometimes things happen just because they happen, But a lot of times as volunteers and as staff, we have to make sure that sometimes we have to be intentional about that process. You know, we might want to throw in something about, you know, I think about emotional growth or emotional development. And, you know, when you're working with middle school age children, you might want to throw an intentional lesson about dealing with your emotions. You know, you're probably not going to, okay, so today we're going to talk about dealing with our emotions. You're not going to do that. As a parent of a middle school child, if I were to do that, he would turn around and walk out of the room. But what you're going to do is have some kind of activity where they would, you know, learn how to deal with their emotions. This sounds really funny, but one that I have seen that worked, and it wasn't necessarily to teach them about their emotions, but one of them, if you're familiar with some animal science lessons, they talk about penning of animals and, you know, how many animals you need in a pen and how much food they need, etc. So you would actually do this lesson where you have an area of the floor blocked off, you know, portioned off, and you only have, you know, one bale of hay, so you figure, you know, one donut, but you have 30 kids, and you got to figure out how many kids can go in that pen with that one donut. Okay, how does this deal with emotions? So you then, once you do that activity, you talk about, well, how did, you know, you talk about, well, you know, when you didn't get part of the food or part of the donut, how did it make you, you know, how do you think you felt about it? How would the other, you know, the other animals or the other people feel about it? So again, you know, it's kind of dealing with emotions, but it's in a sneaky kind of activity that they would enjoy. Okay. It also incurs in an intentional process that promotes positive outcomes, but it also, you know, positive youth development, giving young people opportunities and choices and relationships and support. You know, that's one of the things, you know, we want to make sure that we give them choices. You know, we're not selecting exactly what they're going to be doing. Maybe they're talking about their community service project for the club, or their service project for the club, and, you know, you want them to come up with 3 or 4 choices of things that they could be doing in their community and give them that opportunity to make that choice. And, you know, also with relationships. And then that impact, you know, the impact of positive youth development is that affects both the young person, the families, and the communities.
There's 3 days. Today's the first date.
Okay. So how is sorry. Okay, again, if you can please mute, that would just be helpful. So how is it accomplished? Well, it's accomplished because adults are they're providing youth development, positive youth development in environments that are safe and that are nurturing. And, you know, I always say my job is to provide both an emotionally and physically safe environment for young people, not just you know, we talk a lot about providing a safe environment, you know, as far as risk management, those types of things, but it's also really important that we provide an emotionally safe environment for young people, and that we give them experiences that are going to help them develop their skills that they need for adulthood. I think that too, again, you know, are they going to be perfect at those skills? Heck no, they're not going to be perfect at those skills, not even close, but giving them the opportunity to practice those skills. So creating that positive environment. So I want you to think about a 4-H experience, and this is kind of an interactive thing. So all of you at home, I want you to think about a 4-H experience, and I want you to write or draw. Some people don't like to write it down. Some people like to draw what it looks like. So either one, how that environment was positive. And then we're going to share those. Not everybody has to share because, again, I'm about providing an emotionally safe environment. not only just for children, but for adults as well. So, but I would like a few of you to please share. I'll give you a couple minutes to do that. All right. So what opportunities and choices are there for the youth? So as we think about that environment, can you share with me what you think was positive about that environment? So what was positive? Somebody want to unmute, or in the chat? We have a couple in the chat box, I think, maybe not. Okay. So during the state championship, okay, all the parents were cheering on all the kids and providing them with the nurturing environment. Win, lose, or draw, exactly. That's a great positive environment. I'm guessing that might have been the state shooting sports championship, like the state shooting sports. Might have been one or the other or something else. Okay, yes, yep. Yeah, and that was, actually, I have to say, probably the state shooting sports match this year was one of the most positive experiences I've seen for the kids and for the adults. You know, I noticed throughout the day, kids helping kids when they needed it. You know, it didn't seem like there was a lot of, you know, just the competitive nature. I mean, it was there, but it just seemed so positive, and it seemed like the kids were having fun at it. And yeah, the awards assembly was great because everybody was cheering for everybody. So, any other thoughts on what made it a positive experience? Nobody else wants to share?
One of my favorites is the talent show at 4-H camp, because some of the acts are interesting, but it doesn't matter what it is. It's a safe environment. Everybody cheers everyone on, and I think it gives kids the opportunity to be confident and share their talent, whether it's the best one in the room or not, and it's always a positive experience.
Great. Thank you. So, I've got another chat. So, kids in our rural area, rural club are getting very involved in the swine operation. Yeah, they come down to the farm, hang out with the baby pigs. You know what? And that is like the best thing ever. When I was in high school, my ag teacher, my FFA advisor, he raised pigs, and we would try to convince him every year to bring his baby pigs in. We're like, we'll miss school for the whole day if you'll bring your baby pigs in. Let us just babysit them all day. They're so darn cute. But to me, that's a great positive experience, because you know, the kids are learning something about responsibility and, you know, a whole variety of those life skills. So what kind of opportunities and choices are there for youth in those experiences that you guys thought about? Any ideas? I think about the camp one. So I'm also a teacher now, and we took the 3 tiny pigs to school this year. Yeah, to feed them every 2 hours. Yeah, pigs are just cute. Don't like them when they get bigger, but they're cute when they're little. No, I like pigs. But you think about, what are some opportunities or choices for our youth? Karen talked about the kids at 4-H camp. And that to me is, there's a lot of opportunities and a lot of choices they have to come up with their skits. And in order to do that, in order to get that, they have to be able to make that up and make those skits up and really get that experience. And that gives them a choice of what they're going to do. Any other thoughts on what opportunities or choices there are for you? Think about the shooting sports, the state match this year. What kind of choices were there for our young people while they were there? I think one time somebody had something happen to their equipment. The kids on each side actually stopped and helped that person get their equipment back, and that's a choice that the young people make. Either they can say, nope, this gives me the competitive advantage, I'm gonna win, or we're gonna work together. And so you don't have to lose that experience as well.
But I'm always amazed that kids come from different areas and they may not know each other, but 4-H kind of puts them on a common ground and gives them the opportunity to make friends in different areas and work together and help a stranger and work together.
Yes. So do you think in that experience that you thought about, are young people getting their needs met? Yeah, so Kelly mentioned we had a kid that had an arrow break, and another family from a different club gave him a spare arrow. That to me, to complete the shoot. I've been to a lot of places that would never happen. The only way that would happen is, I don't even know, because it's so, and that's what I love about our environment. So, yep. Yeah, kids are thirsty, so people just, again, it's that positive environment. Do you think the youth are getting their needs met in those experiences? In this case, in Kelly's example of getting the water, and getting water, yeah, I think so. We didn't have anybody pass out on us. Other thoughts? Okay. The recent leadership camp in Winnemucca is great. So, the recent leadership retreat that we did in Winnemucca for teens, we had, that was 30 kids from all around the state, and hardly, probably 5 of them knew each other when we started the process. And they tell me that by the time they left, those kids were all really close and just all felt very comfortable with each other. And that's exactly what we're looking for. And they got a few choices. We were having a conversation today during our training. I did a staff training today here in Vegas. And one of the things that we talked about was, with that teen retreat, as we move forward with those types of events, actually bringing the young people on to help plan those events. This one it was the first one, so we did have staff plan it, but in the future they're looking at bringing young people in and giving them their choices, having them experiment with that. Yeah, and I think they were coming up with new things and new ideas, and so great. So that's a really good example of a positive youth development, positive youth development idea. So, and then what relationships and support is there from adults or other youth that help those skills that are needed? So what kind of support did, and it could be you could have thought about a 4-H activity that when you were a 4-H'er, or it could be one now. If it's one from when you were a 4-H'er, how did the adults involved, how did they provide you with support for skills? And then also if it's one that you were involved in with as an adult, what kind of support did you give to the young people involved? Do you guys have ideas on that? Hopefully, I'm hoping that as 4-H volunteers, you're there to support a youth when they fail. And, again, it's okay to fail. It's just fine to fail. We all do it. I was telling him today, I fail on a regular basis now with my position. I'll try something that completely bombs, and I learn from that. And with kids, it's okay to have that failure, because our job is to provide a very safe environment for those young people to then move, to then be able to learn from their mistakes and to gain the skills that they need. A lot of times that doesn't happen in a lot of places. If a child fails at something, then they're written off. And for us, we can't do that. We have to give them another chance. One of my favorite things, it sounds horrible to say, but I love it when a young person can't complete a task, but then they have the gumption, or they have the skills, or they're learning the skills to come to me and say, you know what, I am so sorry, but I can't get this done. And then we work through, well, what could you have done what could you have done to help make sure that you were successful at this? Or what could you have done to change this a little bit? And, everybody seemed to, and that really is, and it gets them thinking about what they could have done differently next time. So other thoughts on that? Yes, exactly. Failure is an opportunity to learn how to succeed. Without failing, we can't enjoy successes. And without failing, you don't have successes. Okay? Yeah, I like that, William. That is great. Everything that we do, that kids are watching. Kids are always watching. Kids are always emulating what we do as adults. So yeah, if we stand back and remain distant, I really like that. If it doesn't work, and Lacey, I haven't seen the gift of failure. I'm going to have to check that one out. The service projects, yeah, that is a great example too of what, relationships and support that we give them. One of the things when you look at the research behind the 4-H program, I think I talked a little bit about it last time, or, people have heard it a little bit, but a few years ago they finished a we call it the TUFF study, but it was a longitudinal study of 4-H and what makes 4-H different than other youth organizations, or what makes us different. And the big thing that they found was our contribution to community, and they found that 4-H members are, I can't remember if it's 3 or 4 times more likely to contribute back to their community throughout their lifetimes even. If you look at 4-H'ers, a lot of them are in the civic, in the civil service. It's amazing how many, we just found out the other day that the chairwoman of the Ways and Means Committee, and I can't remember if it's on the Senate side or the Assembly side of Nevada, is actually a 4-H alumni. We did not know that before, but now we do, so we're good, but we're gonna work with that. But, again, we see a lot of former 4-H'ers going into public service because of, they get that experience. It's a positive experience for them when they're a child, so then they take those skills into adulthood. You never fail if, exactly. You always, my son's football coach this year said, we won one game all year. It was a really, and we didn't lose by less than 40 points any other game. So you know it was a really bad year for us, but he said we didn't have any losses. We had learning experiences with every single one of those games. And so, you know, exactly, you can't fail, so. All right. So that's a really quick overview of positive youth development, but again, you know, I think you guys, it sounds like most everybody on this session tonight understands what positive youth development is. I think the key is we just have to be intentional about, you know, sometimes we have to sneak it in. You know, we call it sneaky education. So we sneak it in and they don't know what we're doing. So, do you guys have any questions about the positive youth development? Any thoughts about it? We know that what we do is positive youth development within 4-H. So, okay. So I'm going to, if there aren't any other questions, I'm going to pull up the next, and I am watching for questions. So I'm just trying to find my PowerPoint. There we go. Okay. So we're going to move into 4-H club management. And I think this one will probably take a little bit more time, but maybe not. All right. So we look at club management. So 4-H clubs, we know that 4-H clubs are the most important youth development experience for our 4-H members. You know, a lot of you probably know that we do have a variety of delivery modes within the 4-H program. We do a lot of school-based programming. We do a lot of after-school-based programming. We do a lot of special interest things. You know, most of our counties are gearing up for a lot of spring events. You know, the fair is one. You know, I know like Carson City has their Carson City Farm, I think it's Farm Days. You know, I think Pahrump is in the fall, but they do a fall festival. It's just a whole variety of things. Those are what we call special interest. We also, we have our camping programs, etc. But if you look at a lot of the research, the club program is where the young people have the that is the program that has the highest impact for change in young people. I'm not just, you know, the other ones are fantastic, and our goal is to go to those other delivery modes and then bring the kids into the club program. However, we can do that. But with that, you know, it's for this reason that our volunteers, you know, they work. A lot of times we have a volunteer come to us and says, I want to start a 4-H club, but they've already got youth that are interested in starting that club. And so, or maybe they're taking over the management of an existing club, or they're joining other volunteers. You know, we always get new volunteers within our clubs. And so how do we provide that leadership to the club experience? So we're making sure that it's a high quality, positive youth development experience. So again, you know, we want the results to be quality youth experiences. We want the young people to walk away with those positive experiences. And it includes specific components that are put in place when the volunteers are working together. So we're going to talk about critical components, and I don't know if I'm going to put you into, actually I don't know if I can do that. No, I cannot on this system. Okay, I was originally, so we're going to change the activity that I was going to do a little bit, because I was actually going to move you guys into breakout rooms, but it looks like I do not have that option on this system. So what I want to do is we're going to talk about components that are necessary for 4-H club management. So again, I thought I could break you out, but I can't. So if people want to chat, or if people want to just type those, or if you want to just unmute and get those ideas. So what are some components that are critical to the 4-H club, to club management? So think about, what are things that you need to do in order to make sure your club is on the right track? You guys are all so quiet. You can unmute yourselves, I promise. Oop, that's not what I wanted to do. Sorry, playing with buttons. Everybody want a couple seconds to think about that?
Carrie, you have a few things in the chat box that have popped up.
Okay, mine is not popping up and I don't know why. There we go. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
It's not showing up on mine. So, okay, regular meetings, that's a good one. Organization, involve parents, that's really good. Establish goals, effective communication between the club leaders and the parents. What about between the club leaders and the youth? We always talk about, the adults and the kids. We talk, sometimes we have to start giving our young people responsibility to communicate. I know it's tough, and again, as a parent of a 14-year-old who doesn't always communicate everything with mom, and sometimes things pop up and he's like, Mom, I'm supposed to be somewhere tomorrow. Yeah, clubs that are youth-led and volunteer-driven, good. Other things? Okay. You guys have hit a lot of these. A lot of what we're going to talk about. Okay. And so one of the things when we talk about too is looking at how the tasks could be accomplished with both a youth and adult partnering in that leadership role. And so, yeah, agreed, the buy-in is youth is paramount, yes. It takes the support of the parents. We know that if we have youth that really want to be involved in 4-H, if the parents are not willing to commit, more than likely that child will not last very long, because it's tough for them to get to meetings, it's tough for them to get anywhere without, unless they're of driving age, it takes that parental support. Or another caring adult in their lives. I've seen, an aunt or an uncle that feels like it's important, so they take them, or, a neighbor that really thinks it's important, so they take them. Okay. So there's 9 components in good club management. And so we're going to talk about each one of those. I did give in the stuff that I emailed out to everybody, if you had a chance to pull up the handouts and the PowerPoint, there is a handout in there, and if you didn't, then you will get that. But there is one called How You Develop. It's handout number 1, How You Develop and Manage Your 4-H Club for Success. And these are the 9 components that we're going to talk about. So the first one is structure. So knowing the type and the size or the scope of the project, and also what other kind of learning experiences, what kind of membership are you going to have, what kind of membership size do you want, how many meetings are you going to have, and what is the location of those meetings. So, you think about, we have a lot of clubs, and Nevada is, very diverse in the way our clubs function. We have some counties that have community clubs where they may have a club, and then they've got 10 different projects within that club, each with their own leader. And it could range from, chickens to baking, or, chickens to robotics, or what, it's a whole variety of projects. We also have project clubs, which are very, like maybe it's just a beef club and that's all they do. They just offer beef. And we've got, and then we've got a mix in between. And then you have to think about what are some of the other learning experiences. Maybe you want to take them on a field trip. If you've got, if you're doing a vet science project, you're probably going to want to take those young people to a veterinarian's office and let them see what happens there. Maybe the veterinarian, when I was doing my student teaching, we had a veterinarian in town that had I can't even remember what the case was, but it was a really oddball case. And it was, I think it was the freshman class that was studying animal science at the time. He's like, hey, bring them out. You guys have to see this because you're never going to see it again. And, that was a great, that was a spur of the moment, but it was a good learning experience. Membership size, we say, we're open to all, but that does not mean that your club has to be open to, 150 kids if you've got 2 leaders. So you need to think about that. What is the size of the membership? What we do say is, if you tell your extension office that you are closed to new members, and so then they don't send, and then you let in somebody, that's where we can run into some problems. Because if that, if somebody that got turned away, caught wind of that, turned us into USDA, we could get into, or even the university, we could get into trouble. So, but if you only have enough room for 10 kids, then you have enough room for 10 kids. I mean, that's fine. And then you need to think about the number and the locations of your meetings. I was talking to a county the other day, and they were talking about the only time that they can run the only time that their clubs that are successful in having meetings is in the summer. So that's when they do their clubs. They may do, 3 months in the summer, so they might do 6 meetings, 1 every other week. They're getting in 6 meetings and they're having that experience, but then that club may not meet the rest of the year. And that's okay. Again, that kind of stuff is okay. We just, our clubs don't have to run year round. They don't have to run, they can run, we really say 6 meetings is kind of where we would like it to be. But, we'll work with, I'm sure, your county office would work with you. And then where are you going to have those meetings? Sometimes our county offices, I know, Sharon's up on the screen right now for me, and I know a lot of her clubs meet in their county in the county extension office because they have lots of space for that. Same thing in Pahrump, most of the clubs meet in their 4-H annex building, but some offices, don't have that space. So you need to have a constitution and bylaws. Now, I will tell you that when you charter a 4-H club, you're supposed to have a constitution and bylaws. So, but I think it's important for the young people to be involved in that and think about how are you going to operate and how are you going to be governed? Is there going to be one organizational leader and the president? You need to think about all of those things. Membership. So how are you going to get members within your club? And again, you can have young people talk about this, promotion, recruitment, enrollment, and re-enrollment. One thing that your club could do, if you have a 4-H, or if you have a parent or you have a volunteer that loves the enrollment process, because I know you all love it so much, but if you have somebody that's pretty good at it and understands it, maybe that person serves as a liaison to the other people about the enrollment process. And I do not know where my chat box, where it goes. Is it coming up? No, it just does not want to come. There we go. Okay. So yeah. So sorry, I'm just seeing the comments. So thank you for clarifying that. The numbers and new members thing is hard to explain sometimes, yes. And again, club leaders need to be specific about the numbers that they can handle, and it's okay if you have some that can handle 30 plus youth, that's okay. And then if somebody can only handle 6, that's okay. Just make sure that again, you've got But you know, maybe you've got a parent that can do, you know, can help the other parents or the other, you know, the other people with the enrollment and the re-enrollment process. You know, they kind of serve as a middle manager in that area. And then, you know, maybe you want to do a lot of counties do floats in their parades. That's a great recruitment tool. So maybe you have the float, but then you're giving out stickers, or maybe you give out a sucker that's got a little piece of paper wrapped around it that says, hey, if you're interested in joining 4-H, call this number. There's lots of things, but have the kids think about unique ways. Oh, now I just lost my chat box again.
Like every slide.
I know. Okay. Oh, this one didn't do what it was supposed to do. So again, your officers and committees. Now I will tell you, this says officers and committees, but what I especially tell our staff this, I don't necessarily think you always need volunteer, I don't always think you need officers. What I like to see is some kind of youth-led leadership opportunity. One thing that I've seen work really well is maybe you don't have a president that's president all year, maybe you rotate that. So maybe you have somebody that is the chairperson for 3 meetings or 2 meetings, and then and you have somebody that's a secretary for 3 meetings or 2 meetings, and then you have somebody that has another role, and you know, at the end of those 2 meetings, and the secretary moves up to the chairperson role, or the leader role, and so you just give them that opportunity to share that leadership role too. You can also have your traditional club officers. You know, I just like to see some kind of youth-led leadership. And then a club treasury. If your club is raising funds or collecting dues for anything, then you need to make sure, you know, it's really important that it's not just the volunteer that's handling those funds. You want to make sure that you're teaching the youth about financial management. So there could be, you know, a treasurer that, you know, gives the monthly treasurer's report. And if you are raising money and spending any money, then that needs to be reported at every meeting. And your club members, those club members also need to be voting on whether they pay that bill or not. You know, more than likely they're going to vote on it, but you want to make sure that they are, you know, that they're involved in that discussion. And then club plans. So it's developed by the officers and the leaders, and it's communicated to the club membership. So maybe you come up with a meeting by meeting plan. So, you know, in the January 2nd meeting, we're going to do this, and you know, and you have the officers talk about what are activities that they want to do. You know, one of my son's 4-H clubs, every year right around Christmas time, we did, I don't know if any of you have heard of Operation Christmas Child. It's where you put together like boxes, and they send them to, I can't remember which country it is. It's like Peru or something, I can't remember. But they send those to kids in other countries. And so every year at Christmas time, we would always do Operation Christmas Child. And every one of the youth were asked to bring, so if we were going to put together 10 boxes, then you brought 10 of an item. So it might be, you know, like we would always bring 10 Hot Wheels, or 10 stuffed animals, or 10 toothbrushes, or 10, you know, toothbrush and toothpaste. That's a great activity if but you would have the kids think about those types of, you know, or at Halloween, you want to do a Halloween party, you know, a costume contest. Then you would, you know, at that meeting, you would have that planned out. Nope, they didn't like that. Sorry, I was trying something. Told me I could hit Alt-H. Okay. And then we have the meetings. So you want to make sure in your meetings that you're balancing business, education, and recreation. You know, there needs to be a portion of it is a bit, you know, really should be kind of a third, and a third. So business is, you get your business meeting done. And then education can either be, you could have somebody come in and talk. You could have the young people give demonstrations. And then you also want to have some kind of recreation time. That could be snack. It could be play a game. One year we did I'm trying to think. So the year that they did the Stomp Rockets for National Youth Science Day. So if you're not familiar, every year 4-H does what we call National Youth Science Day. And with that, there's an experiment. And Stomp Rockets are really fun because they get to build a rocket out of a pop bottle and a hose. And, they get to stomp on the pop bottle, the empty 2-liter, the rocket flies up. That's a great recreational activity for a club meeting, but yet it's also education. Because they're talking, they get to figure out a variety of things. So that's one, but you need to make sure you have that balance. Because kids will quit coming if it's business meeting, and they'll actually quit coming. Parents will quit bringing their kids if it's recreation, because the parents want their kids to learn something too. So that's why you have to balance it. And then reports. So I think it's always important to inform your 4-H families, the extension office, the local community of activities. And so this could be something, a reporter does. It could be, there should be time at your business meetings talking about the different opportunities. If you have young people, so if you have kids going to 4-H Day at the legislature at the end of April, make sure when they come back that they're reporting back to your 4-H club about that experience. You also need to let your extension office know your activities. I think that's, I always like to know if my clubs are out doing a community service project. I might pop in, or, sometimes I would get a phone call. Hey, do you know you have 4-Hers out doing blah, blah, blah? And it's like, not a clue. That was probably more when I lived in small communities, but, it does, or you have the news call or the paper call, and then again, letting the local community know what's happening. And then evaluation. And so I think it is really important for our clubs to assess themselves, to look at, what they can do using, if you're familiar, and I know Karen's going to talk in a few minutes about the 4 essential elements, but there are some pieces, and within the handouts that I shared with everybody, I did share with you some examples of some pieces that I found with the, as far as evaluation. I thought that there were some really good pieces. The one from Wisconsin, it's a 4-H club self-assessment. Now, granted, okay, so it tells you to go in and put it into this link, this online link. Obviously, you guys are not going to do that because, we don't have that. But it could be something, but I really liked that. It talks about, it asks you basically, it's kind of following these guidelines, do the youth and adults take time to greet people as they enter, and do the officers and volunteers initiate contact with each other? There's just a whole variety of things. There's also one from California that, I really enjoyed. I liked looking at it. And then also National 4-H Council put out one, or National 4-H Headquarters put out one. It was really dealing more with healthy living activities, but again, really good. The other piece is in the handouts that I gave you, handout number 2 gives you some suggestions for club leadership as far as suggestions for dividing up the responsibilities. So if there's only 2 leaders in your club, maybe leader number 1 is a chairperson or the organizational leader, as we sometimes call them, and the contact person. So that would be the person that the extension office would contact about your club. And maybe they work with coordinating the leaders, recruiting new leaders. They're the ones who are doing program planning, the club activities, working with the officers, providing the recognition and the evaluation. And then maybe the second leader is the one that works with the project leaders or works with the other team leaders, not necessarily the officers, but the other team leaders. They're the ones who are the communications person. So they're communicating between the different groups. They're the ones handling the enrollment process. They're advising the youth about project selection, or maybe they're the ones working with fundraising and then also working with the evaluation. And it takes it all the way down to the 5-person team, you know, but it just kind of, and those can be both youth and adults in those, you know, in those club leadership teams. And then here, I think these are really good resources. You know, I looked at some, these were the ones that are suggested from the, you know, when this was put together, but they are good resources. So, okay. Yes, hands-on activities, demonstrations, presentations. Yeah, I think Sharon was saying that during the, you know, balancing the education. Those are, you know, you need to make sure if you are doing education that it's not just lecturing to the kids, that there's some kind of hands-on presentation, and even having the kids do their demonstrations, you know, in the club. That was the one thing I don't see as much here in Nevada that I saw more so in other states where my son is actually, the kids went to the club. I mean, that was expected as you did your demonstration at the club meeting. So, any questions about club management? There is, in the one handout does give you a checklist, so you can work on, you know, you can work with that. So, no thoughts about club management? Anybody have any really good things that have worked for them as far as club management? I think communication is probably the key. The one thing I find probably the biggest frustration that I hear from parents is I don't know what's happening. I'm not told about any of our meetings or anything. And so we have to think about, you know, how do we communicate in that aspect? And Sharon, yes, listening to the youth. That's the other key. Is as club leaders, we need to listen to our youth. Yeah, Kelly, putting the events and meetings up on Facebook, assuming that everybody has Facebook, so you may have to do multiple ways, which I think is good, is multiple communication methods. You know, Facebook is a good one because a lot of people do have it, you know, text messaging, emails, maybe sometimes a phone call. We just have to look at that. But, you know, I have found pretty good success with Facebook too. Okay, I'm going to pull up.
Mine on there, you need my.
Nope, I've got it. I just have to find it. There we go. Just had to find Karen's presentation. Okay. Are there any services that you've seen that are successful or email that sends out? 4-H Online, actually, Lacey has the ability to do text messaging, and yes, the app GroupMe is really good too. I've actually heard really good things about GroupMe to send out text messages. But 4-H Online does actually have the capability of sending text messages as well as emails. So to, you know, as a broadcast. So yeah, does anybody else have any good, I'm trying to think, we've used some other ones and I can't think of what they are now though. It's amazing how many people want text messages now instead of emails or Facebook, especially if you're working with youth. I'm finding that most of our young people don't check their email. They have no idea the email's even. Parents have to opt in for text messages, but if you just let them know that that's an option, they can. So obviously you can't send a whole, like, you know, a 50-page email, but you can say, hey, you need to go on and check your, or whatever. Sometimes I will send a text message through 4-H Online that says, you know, hey, I just sent out information about 4-H Day at the legislature. Please check your email for that information. Too much for this message. So, all right. So Karen Best is going to come up and share information about organizing and, or planning and organizing.
Yes.
So it kind of is built in, yeah. Okay. There you go. And I'm going to monitor the chat box.
Okay. So I don't need to flip back and forth?
No, I'll monitor it from back here.
Okay. So can everybody hear me? Which was a silly question because most of you guys are muted. So I will go from there. So we are going to work on planning and organizing. So developing planning and organizing skills are necessary for life skills that are learned. Goal setting and future planning, responsibility, time management, teamwork, and connectedness to organizations are critical life skills. 4-H members need to support and instruction to become competent in these skills. So let's talk about that a little bit. This is where club officers and adult partners work together to plan and organize, to conduct business, service learning, and other social activities. This is where adults act as advisors and provide leadership. So, go on to the next one. Okay. So, planning and establishing 4-H club goals. You want to establish goals at the beginning of the year. Club officers and adult mentors can review the past goals and establish new ones. It can include input from other members and parents. Start easily with attainable goals and gradually include others. As the club grows, goals may become more comprehensive and challenging. So in this section, you want to talk about attainable goals, especially when you're establishing a brand new club. A lot of times, I know Carrie talked about this when it comes to bylaws and constitution. As you notice on our UNCE page, there's a lot of tools that will help you with these types of things. But a lot of times, people use the standard when they're just starting out. And they may identify, you know, a few goals and a few meetings to start getting their feet wet. How many of you guys, and I can't see from the chat box, are brand new to the program? And how many of you guys are have been with us for a little while?
We have one fairly new. New. So Lacey Thompson's new, Adrian's new, William's new, Kelly's second year, Laura Lynn is 3 years, Ellie is second year. Haley, how long have you been here? First year as a leader though. Rebecca Taylor, 7 years. Sorry, I just have to give you a hard time, Haley.
So yeah, so you want to make sure that, you know, when you're first starting out, that you're reaching attainable goals. And some of the tools that we'll use in this presentation will help you to make sure you're hitting everything. Why do you not want to work when I press B?
Go down below. If you go down by the Nevada, and then you should, some bubbles should, there you go.
Ah, there we go. So, annual plan of activities. You want to review club goals, consider county calendar, and ask youth to brainstorm activities. When choosing activities, balance learning, service, and fun, which we just learned about in the club management. Intentionally include the essential elements. So what we did is I added the handout for essential elements, and you'll see that in a couple different places if you look for it online. And some of them list 8, and some of them list 4. So if you're not familiar with that, it's a good thing to be familiar with. We're going to go for the purpose of the 4, and this.
Do you want me to pull that up?
I'm just going to go
Okay.
go over it. It's belonging, independence, generosity, and mastery.
The good way to remember that is the big M. So belonging, independence, generosity, and mastery.
You want to allow flexibility, involve your club members, establish committees, evaluate activities, and submit records to extension staff. So this is where our little hands-on activity comes in. And in your handouts, there is a 4-H club annual plan of meetings and activities. And one sheet is blank, and the second one is a sample annual plan.
And we can pull that up.
Oh, we can? Okay, good. And in the process of time, I really want you guys to maybe come up with one line, and we'll go around, and there's examples on the second page. If you want to kind of identify like one meeting where you could have a business agenda, a program agenda, a recreation agenda, community service learning project, what essential elements you think will be served by any of those activities, and special events. Some of you, if you're in Clark County, I know we have the fair coming up. Some of you guys may be doing the 4-H legislature day. Those are good special events to work around. So take a few minutes and just think about it. It doesn't have to be perfect. It may be an example from the last meeting that you had, and come up with a few things to fit in those boxes just to get the practice of what that would be like. So I'll give you a couple minutes. And when you're ready, if you have something that you think would fit into a business agenda, if you could type that into the text box.
Or you can unmute yourself and talk. I think everybody's more comfortable with the chat. You guys are lucky. I have a lot of meetings that they don't allow us to turn off our cameras. You have to participate fully with your cameras on. I don't do that.
That's okay. Some of us like to be incognito.
Yes.
I'm usually that person. Any examples of things that would go on a business agenda?
I'm not seeing anything yet pop up in the chats. Maybe let me go back here. Sorry, I have 3 devices connected to Zoom right now.
Yes, we are, prepared for all forms today. We weren't sure if people were going to show up in person or online, and this room has a TV screen, a computer monitor, and a video screen, and so we're balancing the 3. Anything in the chat box?
Yeah, we're getting there. Maybe
Okay.
scheduling weight checks for fair animals. That's, yeah. Calendaring,
Weight checks for fair animals, good suggestion.
calendaring the fair meetings, fair, service activities. Fundraiser for new livestock equipment is good.
Calendars, fundraising.
Yep, reporting and voting on treasurer's report, yes. That should be done at every meeting.
Reporting on treasurer's report and approving, yes, definitely. Sometimes it's project updates, UNCE, a lot of times our clubs will add a category for that so they can update them on anything going around countywide.
Electing and training leaders, state 4-H updates, yep. And hopefully your county offices are turning around and sharing the state 4-H updates with you when I send them out.
And what about on a program agenda?
Demonstrations, presentations.
Presentations, I see a lot of that in club meetings. I see some community service projects, sometimes they're doing a collection or the kids will bring in stuff for a canned food drive or one of their other projects that they're working on.
Something else I've seen is where the county office, like your county extension 4-H professionals may come in and do a presentation, do some kind of educational program. That's good. I used to do that. Make posters to promote National 4-H Week. That's they can be put up at businesses or in your office or wherever.
It's a good time to do a National Science Day sometimes, like Carrie suggested. Sometimes your program and your recreation can go hand in hand. As well as, you can always have guest speakers from other places come in, especially as it relates to some of the projects that your kids are doing.
Yeah. So Ellie just mentioned that they recently had Karen come in and go over record books, and that's a great, especially as it's, at the beginning of the 4-H year, so they understand record books, and then maybe at the end of the year, so they remember what they're supposed to do in their record books.
A lot of their record, down here, their record books have to be up to date before they can go to fair, and so they were getting those ready.
Or it could be that they come in and do a parliamentary procedure lesson, or just a whole variety of. I've done just about everything at a club meeting.
So what about recreation? What kind of things do you do to get the kids excited and having fun?
Icebreakers, team building, 4-H Jeopardy, that's always good. I probably somewhere in my stuff have a Jeopardy board game, like a Jeopardy computer where you can generate questions and, so it's on the computer. I'd have to do some searching, but I probably have it on one of my old files somewhere, and that's always a lot of fun to do. Get the kids thinking about the history of 4-H, just a variety of things.
I know I always enjoy the camp songs, especially the movement camp songs. They're kind of silly. I like to bring in some of those team building and ropes course type team building activities.
Project-related games, poultry terms, yeah. We just did 4-H Jeopardy at a meeting. Yeah, the parents and kids love it. I actually did 4-H Jeopardy when I was teaching a college class one time. I had to go in and I taught about 4-H and I did 4-H, and the kids, those college students loved it. So, you know, like a holiday party, if that's your recreation, you know, you could have a white elephant gift exchange and have a $2 limit on the, you know, or I've actually seen it too. This was my favorite. They did a book exchange one year for Christmas. So every kid brought in a book, and then everybody, you know, and you labeled if it was a boy or a girl's book, and if it was, you know, but then the kids exchanged books. And it was kind of random draw, but you know, that was a great, I loved that one. Of course, you know, I'd rather have my son get a book than, you know, a $2, you know, giant candy bar or something.
And what about community service learning projects?
Yeah, Ronald McDonald Food House Drive, you know, or Ronald McDonald House Food Drive. The other one is the Pop Tops for Ronald McDonald House. That's a huge one. There's a 4-H'er from Iowa that unfortunately passed away this summer of cancer, but before he passed away, his goal was to collect 1 million Pop Tops for Ronald McDonald House. And when he passed away, he was at like, I don't know, 750,000 or something. And the community and all the clubs he was from Iowa, and all of the clubs in Iowa kind of banded together and surpassed his 1 million. And they're continuing to raise you know, so that's a pretty easy one to do, you know, and I've seen that in a variety of things, and they, you know, that's a great service. Or food drives, or, you know, and, you know, we need to think about not just doing food drives at Christmas time, but actually, like, from my understanding from the food banks, a lot of times when they're July, you know, May, June, July, is their pantries are running low. And so, you know, we need to think about that.
Well, and also think of where you are and what limitations some places have. I know some of our school clubs and community center clubs, they plan their community services for something that they can collect at the location. So it's good to know where your members come from and make sure that they're able to accommodate that if they have transportation problems or things like that.
Yep.
So let's talk about those essential elements. So for example, what would a calendar help with? Belonging, independence, generosity, or mastery? Anybody have an idea?
Mastery is one, yep.
So what about some of the other things that we talked about? Oh, I see a chat.
Yep, belonging, to stay up to date and everybody knows what to expect, yep. I was also thinking independence. So, you know, if you've got a calendar, you don't necessarily have to send out 500 reminder messages. If, you know, you just say, hey, you need to make sure you look at the calendar.
What do demonstrations fulfill in the essential elements? Anybody have an idea?
Belonging and mastery, yep.
Yes. What about our community service projects, planning those, say Ronald McDonald House or the Pop Tops?
Generosity, We had 2 generosities.
And what about recreation, such as those group games or team building or camaraderie, having refreshments?
Belonging, yep.
So and then our last category is special events. And that can be club, county, district, or state. So these are those things that you want to kind of keep in mind, especially if you're trying to bring kids to a certain area. So like for instance, when you're doing your annual plan, if you know your fair is coming up in April and you're starting your meetings in August, how are you going to prepare or, you know, plan your meetings so that everybody's ready to go to fair?
Now, I will tell you, there's a mistake on this one. National 4-H Week is in October, but you might start planning it in September. But, you know, does your club want to do something for National 4-H Week? Just so everybody on here knows, hopefully you guys can hear me okay. I'm talking loud. National 4-H Week is always the first full week of October. So sorry, I'm pulling up my calendar. So for 2019, it's October 6th through the 12th, which seems a little bit later than it normally is, but that is the timing. So is that first full week of October.
So it's just keeping those things in mind so that, you know, if you're doing a robotics club, obviously you want to be, you know, going for that end goal. As those state events come up, such as 4-H Expo, that's coming up in October, so you want to start wrapping your head around what do we need to do to get to that point. And especially when clubs take time off or they only meet for certain amounts of time, you want to still offer those opportunities if you can, so that kids can continue their journey either way.
And we're trying to really work on getting the statewide, especially the statewide events, getting those dates set by October 1, so then everybody knows what they are for the coming year. We're really, really working at that. Sometimes things come up though.
And anyway, I just wanted to walk you guys through this. I think that, you know, it can be as little or as much as you want it to be, but it might help you to balance, you know, your business, your program, your rec, your community service, and your special events. I encourage you to take it back to your clubs and maybe meet with your officers and see how you can implement this as a tool to help your kids. Do you want to go back to your PowerPoint? Yes, please. I'm glad you know how to do this. There it is.
I think this will work. I've done this a few times in my life. Okay.
Oh, there we go.
Okay.
Perfect. So the next thing is a business meeting agenda. It's where club officers and partners, adult partners, hold a planning meeting prior to the club meeting to help plan write the agenda. The agenda is the plan for what will happen at the business meeting. You can also review minutes of the previous meeting to include any unfinished business on the agenda. So that is another planning tool. So in your planning tools, we can also talk about the difference between planning a 4-H project meeting, and that way when we make our agenda, you guys can use that for either a project meeting or a business meeting. So a project meeting is a planned sequence of age-appropriate and research-based learning opportunities. It provides experiences to develop in-depth knowledge, and it can result in long-term engagement. It's planned in advance, and it should be an experiential, hands-on learning activity. It should build on and reinforce the knowledge that they've learned at previous meetings.
So most of our 4-H curriculum, as you look at it, you know, you start with the lesson 1 and you move through the lessons. And if you notice, they always build upon each other. And that's why it's really, really important that we use the 4-H curriculum so that we ensure that you know, that they're getting that hands-on learning activity that builds upon it. And it also builds up as the youth grow, or, you know, the youth age, it continues with age appropriateness, because you're not going to have a 16-year-old do the same thing that an 8-year-old does.
Well, and like for instance, we're gonna pull up a skeletal of a 4-H meeting agenda, and not everything's going to apply. So I know some of you guys are project leaders and some of you guys may be meeting leaders. So you may have different, sure, yes. And so I want you to kind of look at it and see if there's anything different on there than what you normally do, and you know, talk about a little bit about the differences. So first, if you're a club leader and you do a business meeting, if you could talk about your agenda a little bit, a couple things, highlighted points of what you include on your agenda. And if you're a project leader, what you do a little bit differently in your project meetings.
And if you're just a project club, you know, if it's a project club and you don't necessarily have an overall organizational club, you still need to have business meetings. It's still important, but then you might also have club, you know, if you're in an organizational club, you may have separate project meetings, and then a project club will probably have one organizational meeting and then the rest will be project meetings.
And like I said, it can be, this is an example, but not everybody has, you know, a secretary or a treasurer. Some of you may not be. If you're a community center or a school, you may not be raising money. Maybe you are. Maybe you have some different things on your agenda. Like I said, you talked about project reporting, and I've seen like historian or guest speaker or those type of things. What kind of things are a surprise to you? So if you guys could chat in the chat box on whether you do business or project and something that should be added or taken away.
So one, our club doesn't do roll call exactly. We just introduce new members and their interests. That's one thing to do. Another thing, you know, might be roll call. This is kind of fun, where each week you do a roll call, but the kids have to do, like, they have to say something about themselves. So it might be, we'll do roll call and then you tell us your favorite food. And that's also a way that the young people get to know each other a little bit better. Or they, you know, it could be a whole, I mean, you could do all kinds of things. What's your favorite season, or, you know, whatever. You know, that's, again, one example, you know, and I think it's good to introduce the new members and what their interests are and what they're going to be involved in.
You know, we were doing a lot of talking today about parliamentary procedure and different ways to incorporate that, you know, especially when it comes to voting and, you know, discussion and giving kids the opportunity to have healthy communication and debates. I think that is important in a lot of your club meetings so that they learn how to, you know, use those skills and bring them into, you know, later in life. Just like a lot of things on this agenda, I think it helps them to structure and have a routine to how the meeting is going to go and what to expect. What are some other things that you guys can include?
I personally think it's really important that we do the pledges at our meet. You know, if it's a project meeting or organizational and community club meeting, you know, and you don't have to have a giant set of flags. You know, National 4-H Council in the National 4-H Mall, they sell a desk set that has an American flag and a 4-H flag, and they sit on, you know, you guys can't see me, but they sit, you know, and it's like $8. That's, you know, you can just have those out at your club meetings, but I think, you know, that's that sense of belonging. Yeah, the little flag sets were perfect for club meetings. And like I said, they're not super expensive. You know, and those are, again, you know, it's great for kids. That's that sense of belonging of, you know, they know the pledge and they know, you know, what it means.
And it helps connect us. I know I've been lucky to take the kids to a Legoland robotics tournament. And then last week we had a visitor from Canada. And so it kind of unites them when they're able to do the pledge and they see that somebody else knows the pledge just like they do, you know, no matter where they're from. And so I think it's important to do. One thing we learned though from Canada is they don't add "in my world" at the end. And so they were talking about adding that at their club meetings because of their trip to visit us. Anything else exciting that you add to your project or business meeting agendas? Should we switch back? Let me see if I know how to.
Okay, you hit stop sharing up on top. Okay, and
Go
then
back to my PowerPoint.
actually you can just hit share because it should be up. Click.
Hit share again.
Yeah, you have to. Yeah, there you go.
There we go.
And then, yep, there you go. And then hit the share button down below.
Oh, did I?
Yep, nope, you're good. And then hit the PowerPoint, you know, down below, like to make it do the slideshow. Over on the right hand side. Yep, there you go.
Okay, where'd you go? Or did I not hit? Oh, there we go.
Okay, there we go. Okay.
Perfect. Bear with me, I'm not used to this. So planning and organize, it helps you to make sure that your goals are reached by your club or group. So that's what those tools are for. Not that they're perfect and that they that you have to do every single thing on there or fill out every blank, but they're to help you make sure that you're planning and organizing so that your kids get the most out of their experience. And then this just gives you the information of who developed this set of slides and information. And does anybody have any questions?
But don't try to call Stephanie because she no longer works for Extension. I just happen to know Stephanie. So. Anybody have any questions for Karen? Let me just move my drink.
Oh, that's okay. I was more worried about flipping back and forth on this slide.
So hopefully you've gotten a few tools tonight. They're going to help you with the organization of your club. You know, for me, and I use these tools, you know, even at the state level, these types of tools are ones that I think, oops, sorry, I'm going to turn off. There we go. Okay, I didn't realize my video was on my phone too.
Oh.
I've been looking at some really weird things of me, I'm sure. Sorry, but you know, for me, I really, I always like, you know, I use a lot of these tools even in my work because I think about how we need to plan out the year and how we work with our, you know, to make this easy for you. You know, am I going to do all events? And, you know, I've had comments about 4-H Expo, you know, where it's in October and kids are going to have to miss school. And you know, and it sounds, I don't mean to be harsh, but it's like, if, you know, if I did everything when kids don't miss school, then everything would be in June and July. And can we run our 4-H program in June and July? We can't. So we've got to figure out how to balance it. And so, it's, that's why it's in August, in October. That's when the facility was available. So, sometimes you have to go with those logistics as well. But, it's still going to be such a great experience for our youth that, they're going to get more out of it than school. I know they will. So, any questions about organization or club management or even positive youth development? Okay, so I'm going to give just a couple of brief updates about the 4-H program. Any coordination between 4-H and the school? We don't necessarily have coordination between 4-H and the school district, but what we will have available is we'll have a letter that the kids can give to the school about, why they're missing school. And usually we found, and I don't know, it might be something I'm looking at Karen right now, but it might be something, we let the school district know, hey, we've got this event and, you may have kids missing school. I hope that you accept that as an excused absence.
And it's on university letterhead and it has our contact information for it. Most schools, and I say most because we do have difficult ones, but most of them will excuse the absence or see it as an opportunity for the kids to learn and then allow them to miss or report on it instead of.
And Sharon made the comment, school, the youth miss school for NJLS. Right now there's about 700 FFA members in Reno missing school for FFA conventions. So we do, we make sure that the teachers know, and if any of the schools have questions, they're more than welcome to call, and I'll visit with them about, because we're not only just having the competitions, but we're going to try to have those educational activities as well. So, but just a couple of other things that we've got going on. Some of you, hopefully you all received the email from myself through 4-H Online last week about 4-H Day at the legislature. So this is a change. We did have, it was called 4-H Capital Days, and we did make a decision. We had some things happen, and we just made a decision to cut that down from 3 days, essentially, to 1 day event. On Monday, April 29th, we are going to have the 4-H Day at the legislature. I know those of you from Clark County or Elko or even probably Winnemucca, you may have to come in on Sunday night because we are going to start at 6:30 with the legislative breakfast. We would love to bump that up, but the problem is if we want to have the legislators there, we have to go when they're available, and they're available at breakfast time. So we are doing that. Then we go into, so we meet with, and it is now open to youth that are 13 to 19 essentially, 4-H volunteers and 4-H alumni. The only thing we ask is if you are going to attend, if you would please register, and your extension offices should have, or in that email there was a link to the registration. There's not a fee for it, but we need to have a count for breakfast. I need to know how much to tell the caterers to bring. But so we are asking that. So they're going to have time to meet with legislators. And actually, as we talked about the little desk flag sets, Dr. Lyles, who is the Extension, Nevada Cooperative Extension Director, actually purchased a set of those flags for every one of our legislators. And so, that would be a time that we could have the kids deliver those to their legislators, give those to our legislators, and then also, if they're not at the breakfast, then they could deliver them when they go to the Capitol. But, and then, yes, I will tell you dress code in just a second. And then we're going to move into, then the kids get to go over to the State House, and I think it's called the State House in Nevada. It's where it's called everywhere else, I'm not sure, but to the legislature, and they will have a chance to observe committee meetings. They'll have a chance to observe the session. We are working right now to be able to get the kids down so they can sit on the floor of both the Assembly and the Senate. That's a first come, first serve, but more than likely, if you're going to the Senate, then we ask that you don't go to the Assembly and vice versa, so that as many kids as have a chance. That portion is only open to the youth. The adults will have to sit up in the gallery. We're also going to ask for if we can get a proclamation, somehow. Those details are still being worked out, so we're not 100% sure about that. So dress code, we do ask that they dress at minimum business casual, but we would really like them to dress in business, so it doesn't have to be a suit and, like a suit, but, a shirt for boys and a tie if they've got one. If not, a nice polo or a nice button-up shirt, khaki pants. We asked no jeans that day, and then also, no, if possible, no tennis shoes. I know that's and totally, we understand that not every kid has dress clothes. So, but we try to, we want them to dress as nicely as possible. We will give everybody in attendance will get a nice 4-H lapel pin. That's going to be how we recognize our 4-H participants is, they'll get a nice lapel pin. And if I can get the funding, I'm trying to find a sponsor right now. If you guys know of anybody that might be willing to help sponsor this event, we're in a fundraising mode right now. I'm hoping that I can find somebody that's willing to buy everybody a t-shirt too, but that's a wish list right now. So, and this is, again, normally I would have had this all like fundraised, but the fundraising done for this event, but because we made this last minute change to it, there isn't a registration fee anymore, so we have to figure out how we're going to cover those costs. I will get it figured out whether we have sponsors or not as far as the lapel pins and the breakfast, but I'm working on the other pieces. And again, we'll have a letter for anybody that, any of our young people that are going to miss school that day. There is also the requirement that we ask that they attend one of two. They can attend either or pre-conference sessions. There is one on Thursday night at, I believe, 6 o'clock, 6 to 8 p.m. I believe. Those are being held via interactive video, so at your extension offices, either Thursday night or then April 17th is the other one. We're going to go over the same information, but they're going to learn about how the Nevada legislative process works, how to follow a bill, and then also go over what to expect for that day. So, and the other thing the other thing everybody will get is a photograph. So we're going to take a group photo, and we'll get copies of that photo for everybody as well. So I think it's going to be a great event. I would love to see a ton of people come. I know it's pretty far for you guys in Clark County, but I think it's going to be a great experience for the young people, and for the adults, and for the alumni. Personally, I'm excited about it. I'm excited to go. So the other piece, 4-H Expo. So you've heard us mention 4-H Expo. If you do not have those dates, it's October 3rd through the 6th. We have committees all set up. Our committee chairs, I think most of our committees have chairs. I think we might still be looking for a couple. But we're going to be having, the state shooting sports match will be at that event. There's going to be a small animal show. So I don't know if they've decided exactly what kind of animals they're going to be. They were talking about a cat show, but it didn't sound like anybody had any cat projects this year. I've got to look. There's going to be rabbits and poultry. There's going to be no cats. Yeah, we don't have any cat projects this year. There's going to be a livestock breeding show. There will not be dogs, rabbits, KV, poultry. Thank you, Sharon. Sharon's on the small animal committee. Dogs, rabbits, KVs, and poultry. But there will be a livestock breeding show. There will not be a market show for livestock. They get that other places, but there will be a breeding show. There will be a state horse show. So that information, or that is coming. There will be a fashion review. There will be a demonstration contest, probably a variety, not just demonstrations, but there might be opportunities for public speaking. And Karen, that you just saw, is actually the chair of that committee. So there could possibly, I know that there's one member of the committee that might want to think about cowboy poetry.
Oh, nice.
So, because we have a couple of counties that are doing cowboy poetry. I'm trying to think what other, there's going to be some special events. We'll have a barbecue on Saturday night for everybody. Thank you, Sharon. That's what I need you on. Static exhibits, so cooking, photography, arts, crafts, etc., sewing. I'm trying to think of all my committees. There will be, so it'll be, the contest will be starting Thursday morning. We'll start checking in on Wednesday afternoon. Contest starting Thursday morning through Saturday, and then on Sunday morning, we're gonna have the finale of the event as a brunch. So it'll be an awards brunch, and all of our awards will be given out at that awards brunch. For the most part, there may be a few things that we can't, but we're going to recognize all of our winners at, we're going to recognize all the youth that participate, just because I think it's great that they're participating, but but we will recognize those overall winners. So I'm excited about that. And like I said, and if you are interested in helping with the planning of that event, please just send me an email. And I will, let me know what you're interested in helping with, and we probably have a committee, and I will put you on that committee. So, because I know our committee chairs are still looking for, each one of our committees only has 2 or 3 people on it. So I know they're looking for
Demonstrations is the place to be, so communication.
Sharon's like, logistics. Right now, logistics is Sharon and I, but we're still, we're looking at some other pieces. The other thing I wanted to share with you is, I don't know, because we have a lot of new leaders. I mean, I'm excited we have so many new leaders on the call tonight, but one of the things that I wanted to share with you is a request that we have in the state legislature right now. It is what we are calling an enhancement funding request for cooperative extension. And the reason I want to mention that to the volunteers is because we're asking for about $4.7 million. And of that, about $2.5 million is to enhance the 4-H youth development program. So I'm pretty excited that Extension and the College of Agriculture, Biotechnology, and Natural Resources, Kavner, has put that emphasis on this request. I mean, they could have really put it towards agriculture, but they've made the commitment to helping with our 4-H program. So of that $2.5 million, what that would do is it would there would be 3 state staff faculty members that would be hired. We would be looking at a volunteer specialist. So there would be somebody that would be available to help with volunteer issues. When you as volunteers have questions, that person, and doing more volunteer trainings for us, whether those are like this, whether they're in person, or actually putting together some online modules. There's a whole variety of things. Another one and that position would be in Reno area. Then another one that we're looking at is a 4-H science specialist or 4-H STEM specialist. And so that person would be working on how do we grow our STEM programming. And part of that is not just, what we consider STEM, but that might also be animal science. It could be food science. It's a whole variety of things. And that position actually would be based here in Clark County. And then we're also looking at a natural resources, or I call it an outdoor education specialist, and that person would be with the shooting sports program. So we would actually have a full-time 4-H shooting sports coordinator, which for any, I know that there's a few shooting sports leaders on here. That is a huge program. That's actually in Nevada. That is probably our one of our single largest project areas, and it is also our fastest growing project and program area. You know, I don't go at least without a phone call or an email every week wanting to get their child in 4-H shooting sports. And so to me, it's really critical that we have somebody that is dedicated to that program. So if you so we actually do not have, so what it is it was, we asked for this request through the State Board of Education, or the Board of Regents. It did not make so higher ed can ask for $120 million total, and it did not make it into that $120 million, but it is the second priority of the, if there's more money available, here's what we will go after. And so there's not really a BDR on it yet. We're waiting right now for a committee hearing to be able to present this information. We are in the process of training 10 teens from around the state. We're giving them an intensive, they are committed to this, an intensive communications training so that we can then take some of our young people into the legislature with us. It's looking fairly decent, but if you know of any legislators or anything, please let them know, please talk to them about supporting supporting cooperative extension, supporting 4-H. We don't know at this point if we're even going to get money or not, but things were looking pretty decent. This sounds horrible to say, but I'm like, hey, the marijuana tax this year has been fantastic, and it's just raising up that revenue, and I'm like, let's go for it, because my philosophy is I'll take that money and I'm going to make it so in 20 or 30 years we won't have it anymore because we've given our young people the skills. But let them come in from out of state too, and I know that sounds funny for me to say, but being honest, let's take it and turn it into a positive thing. They said our gambling revenue is up. It's like the third highest ever, and then the marijuana tax is like surpassing what they said. So things are like, I can't guarantee that anything is going to happen, but we're hoping. But I just wanted everybody to be aware. The other piece is, if you are interested in learning more, because there are other things that we're asking for, like we're asking for a livestock specialist. That livestock specialist would not only be just adult livestock, but they'd also be working with youth livestock. So, our 4-H youth would actually have somebody that we could call upon. And then, there's a whole variety of things that they're asking for. And, I've got a 1-page document or a 2-page document that explains what the ask is all about, and that I am more than willing to share with anybody. We're just, like I said, we're right now just kind of working through the, letting people know that it's out there and that we are, we would be very grateful for support. So, any questions from you guys? Those are the big things that I could think about. Pretty much 4-H Day at the legislature and 4-H Expo are consuming about 90% of my time right now. So it's been, I'm excited for both of them. I'm excited when the first year is over for both of them. So, oh good, I'm glad Shorty was there with you, Lacey. Hopefully he learned a lot. Does anybody else have any questions? No, I can't get rid of fingerprinting. I wish I could. That's always a question that comes up. I'm being directed by higher ups than me. But I'm advocating for you guys always. Well, we are done a little bit early. Great. Thank you, William. I'm, you know, and if you guys have, if any of you ever have questions, you know, I know, well, we've got, what, 3 staff on here, well, 2 staff on, and then 1 in the room with me. You know, I know that they're always more than willing to answer questions. I'm always willing to answer. You know, I get lots of questions. Feel free to email me and I will figure out the answer. I may, you know, I'll probably call the county and ask them that question, but I'm willing to do it, you know. We have to make this, again, we have to make it a positive experience, not just for our youth, but for adults, because we don't keep youth when it's not a positive experience. We don't keep adults when it's not a positive experience, so. And we'll be doing another one of these trainings in the fall. So, you know, my goal is to have 2 a year for volunteers. Again, if we get the funding and we get a volunteer specialist, then hopefully we'll have more than that. But at this point, that's about all I can manage. And I know a lot of you are getting them from your county offices as well, so. Okay.
Are you still doing the county shooting?
The county shooting sports coordinator training here in the southern area, I need to reschedule that. Because we did cancel it, but I need to, I will work on that, Ellie. Thank you for the reminder about that. I will definitely get that. I did it up in the Reno area, and so everything is ready. I just need to get it. I'll work with Louisa and Cindy and Stormy and the kind of the coordinators from the southern area and see if we can get something set up. I'm down here quite a bit anyway. So, and it was, I thought it was a good training. So, thank you guys, and have a great night. And I appreciate everybody participating. This was a really interactive group. So, I appreciate it. And I'm done 7 minutes early. Yay! That doesn't happen often.
Thank you, everyone.